Chaos erupted when the ANC KwaZulu-Natal provincial chairperson interrupted the Prime Minister to the Amazulu nation, Thulasizwe Buthelezi, as he made remarks preceding the introduction of King Dinuzulu. This was after the Prime Minister made a call to the President, pleading for his intervention to ensure that provincial government affords His Majesty Dinizulu the respect that he deserves. Newzroom Africa's Ntando Mnyandu is following the story and joins us live. Ntando, take us through today's earlier proceedings. What happened there?
Well, good afternoon to you, Sansa, and our viewers. I can tell you that from the early hours of this morning, the area of Ululi, which is regarded as the heart of the heritage and history for the Zulu nation, was a hive of activities. As we saw the President of the Republic, President Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa, descending to Velenkosini, to pay homage and tribute, to the late King Dinuzulu kaCetswayo's. You would know that this year marks 110 years since the demise of the king. That is seen by many as someone who fought, tooth and nail to ensure that the Zulu kingdom and the KwaZulu-Natal or the KwaZulu homelands, as it was referred to back in the years, retained its integrity. It retained the land that prides itself with. You would know that there are more than 3 million hectares of land under the custodianship of Ingonyama Trust, which the king, His Majesty Dinizulu is the sole trustee. But what also transpired on the formal event, just after the address by the president, who hailed King Dinuzulu as one of the noble kings to ever grace the land, the South African soil, saying that he also pledges his allegiance to the late monarch. He regards him as his own king. But then soon after that, the podium, was afforded to the Prime Minister to the Zulu nation and monarch, Reverend Thulasizwe, who then made remarks preceding to introducing the king, His Majesty Dinizulu. But just before he concluded, or he could conclude, his address, the chairperson for the ANC in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, in the person of Siboniso Duma, took to the podium, to say that, they are now, leading astray the proceedings of the day. The only honors that was afforded to the Prime Minister was to introduce His Majesty King Dinuzulu. But then chaos erupted, and we saw the Zulu regiments or Amabutho taking in front of the stage, singing songs and chanting, salutations in protest of what had just transpired on the podium. But to tell us more of what does that symbolize, let's speak to the cultural expert, Professor Ubabo Musaqulu. Thank you very much, Professor, for your time. The events of today, the day was about, commemorating King Dinuzulu kaCetswayo, as we mark 110 years. But the events of today, leaves a bitter taste in other people's, tongues. What happened, and how do we view this culturally?
Well, firstly, let me start by saying that this was a very successful event, possibly the biggest event after the demise of King Zwelithini, the late, and Umntwana kaPhindangene. For the Zulu nation to come together like this under His Majesty and the President, speeches were great, and so on. When it comes to the issues of chaos, I was asked somewhere this week about possibilities of tensions between the IFP and the ANC here in this event, and I did point out that it's possible for that to happen. Now, we have a group called Thulasizwe. Throughout this week, Mayor Thulasizwe had been saying that he's going to say something about Ntolo in front of the president. So if you saw, once he started saying Begim Tolo, that was when Siboniso Duma, the chairperson of the ANC, stood up and grabbed the microphone, because he knew that I think the speech that was going to come after that was not going to be very nice towards the ANC. So there was that what needs to happen? The people of KZN must find a way of managing the position of the traditional prime minister, because it's not in the government structure. So it becomes difficult for them to know when traditional prime minister to the king can speak and so on. But what he was about to say, he had been saying in some WhatsApp groups, social media, that he wanted to go for Mtolo in this event.
But he was also vocal about, pleading for the allegiance and support from the President of the Republic, Cyril Ramaphosa, to ensure that the province of KwaZulu-Natal affords His Majesty King Dinuzulu and the monarch at large the respect it deserves. What do you say about that?
Yeah, no, that was very important. That was very important. The issue was that, when he spoke, Reverend Thulasizwe started speaking like a mayor of Zululand, and he said that. And then he started naming all the good things that President Ramaphosa and the ANC government have done here. And then later, I think he was changing into a political tone. That is what agitated Duma to stand up and grab the microphone. Yeah.
But in essence, would you say this event was successful, and why would you say that?
It was very successful, and as I hear, there's going to be more events, more activities around King Dinuzulu for the entire of this year. As you had even the Premier of the province saying that we still have to go to Mpumalanga province and all of those. They still also want to do a film on King Dinuzulu. There's also coming some King Dinuzulu choral music, I said for sometime during the month of freedom.
Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you.
Well, that is Professor Musakulu, saying that, there is some undertone because Reverend Thulasizwe Buthelezi spoke on his behalf as the mayor of Zululand district municipalities, but there were some undertones encroaching into his speech, that were a bit political. But now this brings, to the fore the issue of political tolerance in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, particularly between the ANC and the IFP. And to talk more about that, let us now bring in the president of the IFP, Velenkosini Hlabisa. Ngonja, thank you very much for your time. Political tolerance, it doesn't matter the platform. Would you say we have achieved that, particularly between the ANC and the IFP?
Thank you very much, as well as the viewers of Newzroom Afrika. Generally, there is a great achievement on tolerance between the ANC and the IFP at a national level. But I must agree, in KwaZulu-Natal, there are elements of intolerance. Like, for instance, this function went very well, and there was no need of taking the mic from the Prime Minister of the Zulu nation. No matter what he was going to say, if you are tolerant, you allow people say what they say, and the audience is the judgment whether you are just making a story of nothing, out of nothing, or you are making sense. Let me show you. If you look at the back, there are ANC t-shirts being distributed here. We don't have a problem as the IFP because we are not desperate. If you look at the colors of the t-shirt made by the department, the government, is yellow color. If you are at a distance, you can think it's ANC color, a t-shirt. But if you look close, you say, oh, they use ANC colors using the state money, the taxpayers' money to promote their ideology. But as IFP, we are more mature to be worried about t-shirts. And that is what we want to promote to all our leaders, especially as we are going to elections, which will be a turning point in our history and our country. Everybody must exercise the maximum of tolerance in order to allow people to exercise their choice as to who should be the government in KwaZulu-Natal, in the country of South Africa. That instance we saw on the stage was unfortunate in front of His Majesty, in front of the President, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa. I hope we will not see such going forward, where a person is speaking having not said something that is ridiculous, and the program director wants to take the microphone. It was unfortunate, but thanks. Everything eventually came down, everything cooled, and we finished the event in a peaceful and harmonious space. As we are now living, we are glad the foundation came to an end, having achieved its goal to celebrate the contribution of King Dinuzulu, who was a young king during his time and made a contribution in the history of the Zulu nation and in the fight against oppression in South Africa.
Thank you very much, Baba.
Thank you very much.
Well, that is the president of the IFP, Velenkosini Hlabisa, saying that there is some level of intolerance politically, particularly between the ANC and the IFP. And what happened today was uncalled for, as we were commemorating the 110th year since the demise of the late King Dinuzulu, kaCetswayo's. You would know that he assumed power in his early years. With that, it's back to you.
Thanks a lot. That's our reporter, Ndando Mnyandu, who's at KwaZulu-Natal in KZN. From